My name is Katie Rogalsford and I'm Head of the Enterprise and Innovation Academy here at Leeds Beckett University. It's our pleasure this evening to launch with you the Enterprise and Innovation Academy for Business. The Academy is designed to provide a platform for knowledge transfer and for open innovation. It's been established to create an environment which makes it easier for businesses to engage with our university, and also an environment where it makes it easier for businesses to collaborate with each other. Through this activity, we can therefore support innovation and growth within the regional economy. We recognise this is a key role within our university, and it's also a key requirement of many of the partners that we work with, such as Leeds and Wakefield City Councils. Innovation, business development and business growth are vital to the prosperity and growth of a region's GDP. We know that successful regions are those that create a culture of innovation that enables SMEs, larger firms, entrepreneurs and other institutions to create, accelerate and retain innovation. We want to play our part in supporting the Leeds City region and the strong innovation system which attracts, retains and supports talent here in our region. Enterprise is a really important part of our university's offering. We currently deliver around £14 million of enterprise activity each year, which puts us in the top 6 post-92 universities in the country, and probably is the top post-92 university in our region for delivery of enterprise activities. So we're excited about the launch of our Enterprise and Innovation Academy. It builds on the existing success of our Enterprise and Innovation Centres, which have been established for about the past 10 years and which are now home to about 210 businesses. As part of the launch of the Academy this evening, we're also launching a growth innovation scheme targeted specifically at SME businesses and supporting them with subsidised funding through the university to be able to grow and develop innovation within their businesses. If you'd like to learn more about that scheme, we do have some of our business development team here this evening. They'd be really happy to talk to you at the end of the evening if you'd like to find out more. Funding is also something that here at our university we can help businesses to engage with. For example, working with Innovate UK and facilitating access to both European and UK funding programmes. The Academy will also provide access to a range of networking, and Andrew alluded to the Leeds Enterprise Network which we ran last week. That's targeted specifically at early stage businesses and at our students and graduates who are interested in developing their enterprise skills. But alongside that, we will be developing an innovation network which will run bi-monthly and offers the opportunity for larger businesses to join with us as well and to come together, learn and share ideas with the university, but also collaborate between each other and supporting the growth of different businesses and skills sharing in that way. I just wanted to mention our Academy's free membership offer, and this is a way that businesses can get more involved with the university. There's a range of benefits that businesses can access through the membership, including a platform for skills sharing and engaging with the university, and some online learning and development as well around enterprise and innovation skills. As well as accessing our services through the free membership offer, businesses can tap into a range of specialisms from across our university, and we have around about 37 specialist research areas. So trying to find a way through that labyrinth as a business approaching us for the first time might sometimes be a little tricky. But through coming into the Enterprise and Innovation Academy, engaging with us and allowing us to work with you to identify and tackle any of your business problems, we can help signpost and make it easier to engage across a range of specialist support available to you here. It's really, really easy to get involved with us across the whole areas of our university, but in particular through our Enterprise and Innovation Academy. And following today, you will get an email giving you details of how you can get involved and sign up to our valuable free membership offer. There's also some flyers, so when you make your way out this evening, do pick one up on the way out if you haven't already, and that gives you a little bit more information about the support that's available to you. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Andrew Myers, former CEO of Everyman Media Group plc. Everyman Cinema are esteemed partners of our university, and this evening's lecture is part of a planned series of events aimed at supporting our university's employability strategy. We're delighted that Everyman are working with Leeds Beckett University to offer work-related experiences for Leeds Beckett University students in the form of placement opportunities, work-based learning, student projects and much more. This unique partnership will allow students from across our university to develop and learn from a field leader and will allow Everyman to see firsthand the talent and potential of students here at Leeds Beckett University. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Andrew Miles.
Thank you very much. I was actually really excited when I got asked to do this, and I thought they were going to ask me about my experiences at Leeds University and going to Ritz's and Ricky's and going down to Ellen Road when the Arsenal Leeds games used to be decent games of football, but alas, they've challenged me with talking about being a successful CEO through challenging times. I should declare we have a little bit of war in my household. I went to Leeds University. My wife went to Leeds Polytechnic, now obviously Leeds Beckett University. And my experiences of the Polytechnic at that time were the Poly Bop, which were rather remarkable, but probably not the best experience of Leeds Beckett at the time. And again, we talk about many times about how much we enjoyed our time here and how great a city is and how innovative is a city. And Andrew and Kate talked about the one thing that I believe in fundamentally as a business, which is investment. And there's investment in twofold. It's the biggest challenge, and I like the idea about talking about business plan and idea and selling it. But the thing for us is that idea often isn't formalised, and it's often a punt, and it's often a challenge to say to people, look, we believe it's going to happen, and you have to have people who are willing to, one, put the money in, and two, put the time in, and three, other people actually can drive that belief through and actually make it happen. And hopefully some of the things tonight we'll talk about what we as a business, Everyman, have tried to do within the community here, and how the fundamental thing for us isn't expansion, which obviously is important, but it's expanding in a way that when we go into a city or a town, that we are a fundamental part of that community. And those challenges that we set ourselves aren't easy. But again, when you look back after 18 months after opening up a site, is how much of an influence you have in the city, how much do people enjoy having you there, and actually whether or not if you left, whether people would miss you. And those are the barometers of how we judge ourselves. So there may be, surprisingly, a little bit of a film theme going through this. So again, one of those stories I love, and I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but there's a wonderful story, and again, I always think it's a great analysis for business. It's about two campers in a wood, and they've slept overnight, and they wake up in the morning, and they come out their tent, and there's a bear 50 foot away in the clearing. And the bear starts walking towards them. And the first camper dives into his rucksack, takes out a pair of trainers and starts putting the pair of trainers on. And the second camper goes, what are you doing that for? You're not going to outrun the bear. And the first camper goes, I don't have to outrun the bear, I just have to outrun you. and that often is business. Actually, you know what, the challenge isn't often trying to be the highest or the fastest or the greatest. It's about being better than the nearest competition or those people around you. But also it's understanding what you need to achieve it and actually formulating the plan. By the way, Bear got them both dead. It was an awful ending. But again, that challenge of a business is really important. But you have to know what you need, you have to know why you need it, and you have to know where you're going to. So, by the way, there's prizes afterwards. There's free alcohol if anyone can actually get all the films throughout the evening. Obviously not supplied by me, but supplied by the university. Why do I love this one? I love this because two little mice fell in a bucket of cream. First mouse gave up quickly and drowned. The second mouse wouldn't give up. He struggled so hard, eventually he churned that cream into butter and he crawled out. And that for me is what being a CEO is. Unfortunately this is on camera, but it's about being in places that you don't want to be. And I think it's the one thing that all CEOs, business leaders, entrepreneurs have in common is that they fight. And they fight for everything they're worth to try and make their business a success, to find a way out of a problem, to find their way of solving a problem, and to not be too concerned where they find themselves. I will talk about later that a few do drown, and that's life, unfortunately. You know, however hard you struggle, you know what, sometimes it doesn't work out. And I think the difference, it's an interesting thing, we talk a lot of guys in the States, but in the States, it's a badge of honour if you've been involved in a business that you've launched and it's been a failure. It's actually a badge of honour. And I think it's a real sadness that in this country still, there is seen the first thing they ask you is business failures, bankruptcies and administrations. By the way, I have none of those, but it's just, but for me, I think it's a real shame, because again, there's that attitude in Britain, if you have one failure, that makes you a failure. And I think the reality is that the failures as an individual or failures in business actually teach you more. I came through, I was at Leeds University, I studied economic and social history, going for golden neighbours. I think those are the three things that my specialist subjects. And after that, I did the milk round and luckily got accepted by Coopers. And then went on to a very small corporate finance firm. But the two interesting things happened to me, and again, I probably was 23, 24 at the time. The first one was I had an interview on the milk run. I had 3 accounting firms I applied to. I wanted to go do sports management. I wanted to go and work for IMG because that was to me the mecca of all things. And someone said you had to be either a lawyer or an accountant to go and work for IMG. And I was too thick to be a lawyer, so I chose to be an accountant. And so the challenge of that was, so I applied for 3 accounting firms, and Coopers accepted me, and I had an interview with another accounting firm. And I got there, and after 15 minutes, the guy firstly gave me a maths test, which I thought was kind of interesting, even though I'd done economic and social history. And then after 50 minutes, he was looking. It was the last interview of the day, and he was bored out of his mind. And I looked at him and went, "You're bored?" And I said, "I'm not interested in you, and this isn't very worthwhile for me, and it doesn't seem very worthwhile for you. And actually, you know what? Let's just shake hands. It's been lovely to meet you. You can go back to London, and I can go back to carry on drinking." And that was it. At the end of the interview, I never got the job. Surprisingly, but I'd already had a place at Coopers. But the firm actually happened to be Pricewaterhouse. And the partner who interviewed me, I never forgot the fact that to me, it was the most disrespectful way to be as a firm. And I think there's a great quote from a film called Working Girl, which is today's junior prick is tomorrow's senior's partner. And again, that fundamental issue, you learn on the way up that actually you've got to be so careful as a business that every single thing you do, every single day of the week, with whomever you come into contact with, is you as a business. And it's getting your staff to understand, for us, we employ 400 people, that every person you meet is important. And every person you interact with is important. And every person who comes into your workplace is important. And especially in this day and age with Twitter, Facebook, TripAdvisor, Instagram, everything you can think of, that every person has an opinion and every person has a voice. And it's a real challenge of a business to get that thing across. And I learned that. And to me, the fact that Pricewaterhouse merged with Coopers wasn't great for me. But nevertheless, it was that first impression. That was my first impression of PW. And it's a great firm, and don't get me wrong, but that was my first impression. And going back to business failures, I went from Coopers to a small corporate finance firm. I joined there beginning of 2000, and it was a complete disaster. We spent 2.5 years. We were doing leisure and media, and unfortunately the leisure and media industry collapsed in I think April 2000, and so we were chasing deals, and I had 2.5 years where we didn't do a deal, we didn't achieve anything. We managed to take one business that went from, it was a thriving shrink wrap Harvard graphics business, it went to nothing. We did interactive TV company, it was about to float for 30 million, that fell down the drain. But again, these were great, and I look back, it was the best times I ever had, because everything I could have done wrong, I learned there. And it sounds funny, but actually it's an amazing experience. That you have to have failures, and you have to learn to get it wrong. You have to learn that sometimes things aren't rosy. You have to learn the fact that there's one only thing that matters in business, and that is cash. Cash solves a lot of problems. And if you haven't got cash, and you haven't got money to invest, and you haven't got time to turn things around, it only goes one way. So I love this analogy, because actually for me it's about the struggle of achieving it. This is Everyman. This was what I inherited back in 2009. I came in to do as a favour to a guy. I had a business called Nanny Tax. We were the largest provider of payroll services to nannies and employees. I bought that when I was 32. And I would put an MD in, and I wanted to sort of move away so I could actually sell the business. And I was looking for something else to do, and I said to guy who I'd known actually through football. If you've got anything that's in trouble, give me a call and I don't really want a job, but I'll come and look at it. And he said, we've got this business that we've just bought. We had the Everyman in Hampstead. We just bought 7 other cinemas. We've got an amazing investor group, but actually we've got a few problems. And I said, what are the problems? He said, well, the staff are useless and the sites are worn and the infrastructure's gone. We're still paying people by cash. I said, but what are the real problems? And the real problems were actually, it was an amazing, underneath the surface of it, it was an amazing business and it was a rough diamond and it just needed a group of people to really understand how to bring that out. So this was Hampstead. This is an amazing cinema called Screen on the Green. This is a cinema in Walton-on-Thames. This is in Baker Street. And a bit sort of magician like, David Blaine like, I will show you how these changed later on in time. So, again, this is one of the easier ones, the slides here. You know, this is the old Lion King. Again, so the past. I'm a great believer in history and culture. I mean, I believe that fundamentally understanding the soul of a business is fundamental to knowing where it needs to go. To any business, understanding what it is about that business that makes it special is fundamental. What its past is. All right, go back in history, go and read books about. So I read about the Everyman. You go back, it was originally a drill hall. It then became a theatre, and then it became a cinema in 1933. And it showed rep cinema, and it was a real institution within Hampstead, serving the local community. It went bankrupt in 1999, was rescued by a guy called Daniel Brock. And he was the one who had this idea of changing it from a rep cinema into this idea of serving alcohol and wine. And again, totally different from how it looks now, but the concept of actually taking independent cinema, putting some money in, and actually changing the focus and changing the game, because cinema had changed. And a lot of businesses, you know what, there's a great line that says, even if you're on the right track, if you just sit there, you'll get run over. And an independent cinema in the 70s and 80s, I mean, you go back in history, there was 1.3 billion when people went to the cinema in 1933. You know what, by 1985, that was down to about 80 odd million or 85 million. So you've had this huge decline in cinema. The reality was, it was something everyone did, it declined. And why? Because independent cinema stopped investing. Films got worse, people stopped investing, and they became flea pits. And then in 1985, Milton Keynes, this wonderful cinema popped up called The Point, and it was the first multiplex, followed by more and more and more. And I'm fortunate enough to remember, I mean, I went to the Hyde Park Picture House as a student, but we were the first. I think the showcase in the M62 was opened in 1992, if I'm correct. And I remember going out there. We were cool because we had cars, so we used to go on a Friday night, late night. We used to go to the showcase, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. It was clean and it was engaging, and it was nothing like. I mean, we used to drive out to Wickham, to the Wickham 6. So there was this whole growth of multiplexes. And independent cinema just sat there. Oh yeah, we're fine, don't worry about it. People will still come. I grew up in a little town called Edgware in northwest London, and the reality is we had a great cinema. It was an old Ritzy, which was 2,500 seats. By 1985, it had gone down to 3 screens, then it became 5 screens, and then it became Bollywood, and then it closed to become a gym. And the story of it is the same as pretty much most local theatres or local cinemas. And what was interesting was the fact is that they didn't invest. And they didn't embrace the changes that were going on. And whilst multiplexes were clean, new and out of town, you know what, these inner city theatres just disappeared gradually. So understanding that, and understanding that people have a great affinity for their high street, we sort of took the view of actually how can we begin to engage with people to come back to our sites. And we started with the hub of it, of saying, okay, where have we come from? Why do people come to our sites? And how can we change things? And the first thing was very, very simple. When I looked at the business, there were a number of things that were needed to be done. The first one is you got to sell. You can have the greatest products, you can have the greatest sites, you can have the best alcohol, you can have the best food. When I went into the business, they used to say, it's wonderful, our spend per heads at this, and our admissions are this, and our ticket price are this, and this is what. So, but what are our missions? And that's the key for me in any business when I go into is what is the single most important thing in the business that drives the business. And for us, strip everything away, strip out the advertising, strip out the concession sales, strip out the ticket price, strip out the film, strip out the technology, strip out the vouchers, everything else. The only thing that matters is admissions. And so that was the first thing. Okay, one fundamental. Okay, film admissions. How do we get film admissions? The other side of it is what value do we need to achieve in order to make those admissions such that we can actually make some money? And we took the view, and I'm a great believer, and I think every business I've got involved in is that we've never discounted. Why? Because actually for our product, we believe that we offer a great value at this price point. And again, the challenge of any business is to work out where you are in the chain. And I think that the real challenges at the moment aren't the businesses at the lower end. So you look at the supermarket battle at the moment, those at the lower end, the Aldis and the Morrisons are actually, or the Lidls, are doing incredibly well at their price point. And actually again, at the higher price points, again, I think you're still seeing M&S do quite well in terms of what they're doing. But I think the challenge is those businesses at the moment are getting squeezed in the middle. They don't know whether or not they're a discounter or whether they're a premium product. And I'm a massive believer, we've just done a cinema in Selfridges, when people go and they believe they're getting value and they believe they're getting service and they believe they're getting value for money, they will pay for it. And actually for us, that was the first thing first, was we stopped discounting. We offer a day rate, but in terms of trying to say actually a film's worth this on a Tuesday and this on a Wednesday and this on a Monday, we didn't do Orange Wednesdays, which at the time was very controversial. And for me, why not? We did the maths. It didn't work for us. We could do it, the customer would come, we'd get a big peak on a Wednesday night, but we'd be quiet on a Monday night, be quiet on a Tuesday night, but peak on a Wednesday, with everyone paying half the price. And actually for us as a business, we couldn't survive. So again, the challenge was actually, we can't do Orange Wednesdays. Yes, we got some flack for it, but actually once you believe in that philosophy, you have to carry it through, and we carried on through. So once you understand the fact that admissions, in our case money, sales cure all evil, the other side was actually controlling the expenditure. And we were in a very, very interesting position where we had a very worn infrastructure in terms of people and staff. And again, the best challenge I have is, I believe, making your businesses as variable cost base as possible. So for us, the challenge when I came into business is that every single day of the week, the payroll was almost the same. And actually for us, if we had a good week, payroll was here. If we had a bad week, payroll was here, which is slightly illogical, but you know what, we got through it. And it's the little things that we taught our staff. So we do fresh popcorn, unlike multiplexes, which isn't this. Fresh, we do fresh popcorn, and then you throw away the popcorn away. So the staff say to you, can we have the popcorn at the end of the evening? And you say, yes, absolutely, no problems at all. So they used to have the popcorn, and they used to put it in one of the containers. Now the containers, the popcorn, you're going to throw away. Cost of it, nothing. The containers cost 27p. At the time, they've gone up. No, but they cost 27p. But the reality was that if you've got 3 or 4 staff each day having popcorn out of a container, it costs you £1. Doesn't matter, no one cares about £1. But the reality, over the course of a year, that's £365. And actually over the course of 10 sites, or 8 sites at the time, that's £4,000 a year. And that is pure profit. And what we try to educate our staff is actually, I would rather pay for them to go out and have a real proper party, or give them money in form of bonuses or incentives or whatever else, than £4,000 to go on paper cups to another company. And it was that sort of idea of actually really educating them about what the value of the minor things, the detail, and that was an easy one because it was popcorn, but there were examples of that over, most businesses are massive, and people don't focus necessarily on 15p here, 20p there, and if you do, and you analyse it over the course of a year, it really does add up. And if you can find 5 or 6 things, again, we did the same thing with staff. You know what, if you're running shifts, and actually the difference between a shift lasting half an hour earlier or half an hour later can be £10. Can be £10 of staff costs. And if you can cut £10 of staff costs, it's not cutting hours off people, it's not giving any less of a service, it's just you've got people doing nothing for half an hour at either end of the day. And actually if you can cut that £10 over the course of the year, again, it's significant money and it adds up. And actually, you do that over site, it makes massive savings. So for us, that's a big challenge for me as a business is working out where your variable cost bases are and change. The Yoda, the doyen of everything. And no presentation should ever not have Yoda in it, especially in the cinema. I love that saying. It's very similar to another saying that I went to nearly buy a publishing business back in 2000, and we went into this building and there was logos all over the wall, and the best one I saw, and it stuck with me for ages, was the only thing better than a yes is a no, maybe is a fool's gold. All right? And it's one thing I repeat to all of my staff and all of my team over and over and over again, is actually spend your time on things that are going to happen or not going to happen, all right? And you put all your effort into it. For the fact that you're doing stuff for tomorrow, maybe, you're just focusing your effort on things that may not be achieved. And if you've got to find out if it's achievable or not achievable, you've got to make a decision whether or not you can achieve it or not achieve it. And if you believe you can, go for it. If you're just doing, potential, you know what, and all businesses are the same. Ours, we have a limited number of staff, and actually you can't do everything. So focus on the things that really, really matter. So for Everyman, the challenge for us is we had 29 people at head office when I came in. Within 9 months, all of those people had left. In the nicest possible way. Now, the reason why, some of it was outsourcing, and we decided, again, I'm a great believer in making your variable cost base, especially for small businesses. I think larger you get, it's harder. But for small business, having a variable cost base is fundamental. So payroll, HR, call centres, try and outsource those as much as you can, because actually, you know what, you can turn the tap on or off and you can use it and utilise it. And there's some great deals out there. I mean, I'm a great believer at the moment, outsourced HR. I think it's a phenomenal way forward. I think not enough people do it. I think too many people use, there's law firms that again, a lot of people have in-house lawyers. Again, for me, the challenge is to find a source where you can call on that expertise when you need it and turn it off when you don't need it. But why, for me, did we change we had 29 people, and they'd had 2 CEOs before me, and they had a CEO of another business before that. So that was 3 within 15 months. And the big challenge for me was that, a bit like the Grand Duke of York, you know what, I want people to march up the hill with me. And I don't want them to look behind going, you know what, this guy, he's going to go up the hill, and I'm going to, 2 minutes later, he's going to be gone, probably shot. And then the guy behind me is going to say, you know what, march down again. And what they do is we'll march up the hill, and they go like that, you know what, and you know what, it takes time. And for me, especially when you're turning around a business, you have to have people who believe in you, and you have to have people who are willing to follow you up the hill. And actually, some of them you want to run ahead of you, because actually they're so excited to be there. And for me, with the Everyman, the challenge was that we had a team of staff they were great people, but they needed to change, and we needed people who embraced the culture. So we needed, one of the great things that, again, we did, and when I say we, I'm a great believer in we, it's not just me. I was a CEO, I had some great directors who worked alongside me, who were executive directors. I had some great staff who worked. So I've always seen Everyman as a collective, as a we. We banned the use of the word cinema. Really small thing. All the literature changed from cinema to venue, right? A bit arsey to call it venue, but actually, why venue? Because for me, the whole concept of what we looked at, going back to what we said at the beginning about the history and the past, was that a cinema is a place where you go and watch film. A venue is a place where you go and spend time, and you spend an hospitality venue. And for us, the challenge of the business was that we wanted people, and I'm a great believer, and for those who know it, the best example is when someone goes for lunch at the Ivy, they turn around and say, I went for lunch at the Ivy. And they're being very pretentious by saying, I went for lunch at the Ivy. But what are they saying? The big point of the sentence is, I went for lunch at the Ivy. And the Ivy becomes the most important part of that conversation. And either you understand what the Ivy is, and you go, oh, that's cool, or you don't know what the Ivy is, and you look at that person and go, look, he's kind of cool. He goes to the Ivy, so it must be kind of cool. And again, it's a weird social habits, very interesting. But again, if you just go for lunch somewhere, I say I went out for lunch, you know what the important part of the sentence become the lunch rather than where you went. And it's just social dynamics, and it's just an English teacher would be far better explaining it than I would. But for me, that was the same thing we did with the Everyman, is that when you watch a film, Skyfall, Imitation Game, or whatever film you want to go and watch, when you come out of that film the following morning, someone says, where did you go last night? They say, I went to see Skyfall, I went to see the Imitation Game. Right? They don't really say where they went to see it, because it doesn't matter. And they have a bizarre thing that every person they talk to, they don't say, where were you sitting? Which angle did you have? Were you in the front row? Were you in the back row? What was the screen like? How big was the screen? They don't. Because actually no one cares. Everyone's convinced, in the same way as this lecture theatre, you're sitting looking at me, and you perceive in a weird way that every person has the same angle as you. And I look as good from the left as I do from the right. or on the converse, that is bad from the left as I am from the right. But again, that's just human nature. And so for us, the Everyman was about saying, actually, we wanted people to come on a Saturday or Sunday morning and go, I went to the Everyman and I saw the Imitation Game. And it changes the social element of the Everyman. And it changed it from a cinema to a brand. And actually that was the second part of what we were trying to achieve. What we're trying to do, we weren't trying to be a cinema, we were trying to be a brand. And we were trying to develop that brand, and we were trying to develop something that would sit really well within the community. And I go back to it. Again, for me, everything, and again, what Andrew said earlier, what Kate said, it's all about staff. And again, that challenge of, and I'm a great believer in again, personal relationships. I wouldn't ask my staff to do anything that I wouldn't do. And I, again, the key for this business was, we had an office in Holborn, which was over 5 stories, over 5 floors, impossible to communicate. We changed to an open plan office, much smaller, accounts department next to marketing, complaints next to marketing, me next to everybody else. You know, and this feeling of a team and everyone moving forward in the right direction at head office was fundamental. But you can't just have head office, because actually the real activity is at venue level. So for us, and for me, it was about trying to identify people who we wanted to work with in our sites. And again, we changed a lot of the venue managers. Why? Because again, we wanted people, a lot of the staff we employ are young, a lot of them are out of university, a lot of them are incredibly talented. And I have a great thing where I say to people, hi, what's your thing? What's your thing? And anyone who's an accountant or a lawyer or a professional go, what's the thing? What's the thing? All right? And then we're going to look, you're mad. The thing is the thing that they love, or the thing that they are. And the thing is musicians or actors or artists, or they want to be a film director, or they want to go and do dance, whatever it is. And you know what? There's not many of those jobs out there all the time, and a lot of those come to work for us. And I find they are the most engaging, interesting. They're also nutcases, a lot of them. But I love that. And again, we used to have a game we played. We did it here in Leeds City Centre, where I used to go out with our managers, and we used to go to a lot of the bars and clubs, obviously all for research. And we used to go, we used to say, okay, would you employ him? Would you employ her? Why? And it's a fascinating insight to actually, you don't need to meet them for 20 minutes, you just need to go snapshot. Why? And for me, it's always been about it's not about race or size or religion or colour or sex. It's all about someone you meet and go, you know what, I'll remember them. And for me, it's always been about our staff. I want, as a customer, you go meet one of my staff and I want you to remember them. And I challenge myself for the same thing, that if I can't remember a member of staff's name the second time I meet them, you know what, they shouldn't be working for me. Because if I can't remember their name, it means that they're forgettable. And that is a sad thing to say, but you don't forget someone's name who you remember, right? And I'm not saying it's the old dynamic of girlfriend, boyfriend, all that stuff, but you know, when you meet someone who you remember, you know what, you remember the face, and you normally remember a name. And it's the challenge, and I think that if you meet my staff, they are all interesting, they are all engaging, they all have personalities. And they're all very different, but that challenge is one we set ourselves. And there's lots of, I mean, we had some fascinating things. We had the London riots, which was 2011 now, which seems a long time ago, unfortunately, already. And we had sites in the firing line, Islington, Belsize, Hampstead, Baker Street, and it was all going on around it, and I'd been away for the weekend, and I came back, and I refused to let my staff shut the venues. I didn't believe it was the right thing to do, to give in to what I would call a mob of people who wanted to shut down business. I also wanted, there was revenue attached to it as well, but I'm joking. But the important thing was, so I went, and I live slightly out of London, and I drove in. We were forced by the police to shut Hampstead and Belsize Park, and so I went to screen on the Green in Islington with the staff, and I sat there, and we got there, and there was a screening in there, and I said, okay, I will stay if you want to stay, and they said, look, we do want to go home. And at that point then you say, fine, we'll go home. So again, you can't expect your staff to be uncomfortable, but you can't put your staff in a position where they would do anything where you put them in danger or you wouldn't be prepared to do. And actually for me, I have no problem serving or going to work or clearing up or doing everything. I think that's really important for your staff to see that you care about them, you care about the business, and you care, actually there's nothing beneath you that you wouldn't do. And I think that I'm a great believer in it. We also do, one of the things that I've learned, we used to throw staff parties, we still do, a screen on the green, which normally start at 11 o'clock, finish about 5 o'clock in the morning. Which again, why did we throw those staff parties? Because actually it was this idea of a team, and also you learn so much about your staff from actually spending time with them outside of work. And again, I'm not talking about being their best friend, I'm not talking about going out in unsociable hours or doing anything, but again, getting to understand them as people, and also getting to understand them outside of a work context, and actually understanding the people with a bit more personality. And we used to use those staff parties as actually always a way of seeing which people we think could progress to a higher level. And we've always promoted internally every single person. So every single manager of ours started off at hospitality, and they've come through the ranks. And actually a lot of those then gone to work at head office. And we're a great believer, if there's a 24-year-old kid who we think has potential, you know what, Dr. Pepper, what's the worst thing that can happen? Give them a chance. And they never, ever let you down. They make mistakes. But you know what? I said Arsene Wenger makes mistakes, but you know what? They make mistakes. But I would rather have someone who is young and hungry and has something about them, and actually at the end of the day you look back 3-4 years later and you go, wow, look what they've become. And that idea of investing in people and being patient with people, I think is the most rewarding way of a business to achieve it. And actually the other side, there's no guarantees that when you employ someone from outside it actually has a difference. So we do work experience, I love doing kids work experience, 17-year-old kids coming to us, coming to head office, come on work. You know what, it's a great thing to do. And it's incredibly valuable for a business to do it. So those personal relationships are very important. I'm conscious of time. I'll go a little bit quicker. The other side of what I think, again, for me, there was a great line, again, Steve Jobs' autobiography, something he basically said that the role of a business is to never ever let your customer tell you what you can or can't achieve. And he basically uses the example that said if Henry Ford had asked for customer research, they would have wanted faster horses. All right, great line. It's a great example of the fact is that you have to, especially in this day and age, you have to listen to your customers. You have to want your customers to be engaged in your business. You have to let them have a voice. You have to listen to them. You have to answer them. You have to care what they say. Fundamentally important. But when it comes to you as a business, you have to tell them what they want, and you have to believe that's what they will buy, and you have to drive them to actually, in our case, come to our venues. And that was the biggest challenge that we had, whether it's opening up Leeds, which we invested, I think, about £5 million in Leeds, in the site. You know what, you open up a cinema, there's no guarantee that someone's going to come. So what have you got to sell? You've got to believe that they want to come. And that challenge is absolutely fascinating. So for us, the biggest difference that we've done from anyone else in the industry, I look back and I'll show you the picture in a minute, I think it's actually here, is this is the sites now. So that's Hampstead, Islington, Baker Street, Walton. And this is the most interesting one, which is Islington. So I'll go back to the previous slide. Sorry. Go back to the previous slide. That was Islington, top right hand corner. This was it now. 300 seats. and we took 300 seats and turned it into 125 seats, which is totally insane from a cinema perspective. No one had ever done it before. And it wasn't just me, it was my partners, and we sat there and we believed that in terms of concessions, food and beverage, in terms of ticket pricing, but in terms of customer experience, we believe that if we put 125 seats in, we would do more admissions than we would do with 300 seats. Because again, similar to a restaurant, we took the view that if you've got a restaurant with 100 people, 100 capacity, and you've got 20 people in there, or 50, so 10 people in there, it's empty. Everyone walks past, goes, nah, looks awful. If you've got 50 capacity, you know what? Oh, you know what? It looks really quiet in there. Let's go to the next place. The next place got 20 seats, and 10 people are in there. You go, you know what? That looks like a great place to spend an evening. And it's perceptions. And the reality for the cinema industry is interesting because cinema industry occupancies, as anyone will know, a lot of the times they run at 5%, not ours, but the industry as a whole. I think over the course of a year, the multiplexes run at about 16, 17%. So actually you've got 80% capacity in your cinemas. So we did a fascinating challenge, again, me being a boring accountant. We actually took every single day of the year, every single session that we had, am I singing? Every single day of the year, every session, and we worked out how many admissions we would lose if all the people between 125 seats and 300 seats. What actually turned out is we increased admissions by 40%. Turnover doubled. And again, we did the same thing in Hampstead, Islington and Walton-on-Thames. Walton-on-Thames, again, similar. We've done it in 3 sites. Again, but it's having that belief, and these sites now are absolutely phenomenal sites to go and visit. But we did it to 2 things. One, a belief that what we were doing was the right thing to do. And we believe that for those people who couldn't get in for the 6 o'clock on a Saturday night, they would come at 8:30. They couldn't get in at the 8:30, they'd come on a Sunday. If they couldn't come on a Sunday, they'd come on a Monday. And we believe that people wanted to come to the Everyman. And that was their decision. And whatever we were showing, they would want to come here because it was the best place to go to see a film. So these were incredibly, it's incredibly exciting to see something like happen. And actually, they sit amazingly well in the community. But again, that doesn't come from the customer. It comes from you as a business believing that that's what you need to do to achieve growth. And again, for me, the thing I'm most proud of actually, on a like-for-like basis, we increased 2009. We increased turnover from about 5 million to in excess of 8 million, with the same sites, in a period that theoretically we were in the middle of one of the worst recessions that there has been in modern times. And again, we did that through staff and through investing in our sites, in our people, in our infrastructure. We were lucky as well in the fact that the digital revolution came along, and it allowed us to do things with partners that we'd never done in the past. So for those who know the cinema, there's lots of different digital providers. We went with Sony. And Sony said to me, look, Sony Digital, a projector, no one would care about it. They care about it, but no one else cares about it. And they're a fantastic partner. But why did we choose Sony? Because actually for us, the brand partnership is the value. And they had a wonderful trailer that they had, which extolled the virtues of Sony digital projection and bright lights and colours, and they had Premiership highlights. And the Premiership highlights they had were Spurs highlights. And it was Jermaine Defoe scoring goals, and there were about 3 or 4 different clips. So I said to them, look, love it, fine, but you've got to have Arsenal ones. And they look at me like, you're mad. And I went, yes. I said, but you've got to have principles when you're running a business. And I said, every time I go into my site, to have to sit and watch a trailer and watch Spurs goals would just upset me. So I said, fine, we can have that trailer, but we need to take out the Spurs highlights. You need to put Arsenal ones in. So they went away going, he's completely bonkers. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And they said, actually, we've come back, we've spoken to the rights people, it would cost X amount of money to replace it. We're not going to pay to have those highlights replaced. I said, so fine. I said, good. They said, so you'll show the trailer? I went, no, we'll just do a new trailer. And they said, why? I said, because there's Spurs goals and you're not going to change the highlight, we'll do it. But we wanted to do something, again, about brand. So we persuaded them to do a trailer with them, and we did this. And I will...
If I could be anywhere, I'd be on the open road with her, causing trouble.
As close to the action as I could possibly be.
I just want to be scared. I love being scared.
Lady Margaret was always happy in the glorious gardens of her manor.
No.
Right at the heart of the battle, every time. Beautiful.
She wants romance, and that's all that matters.
And that's where the Sony came in. And for us, the challenge was, again, it was all about brand, and it was all about the fact we wanted to be different, and we wanted to do something where people go, look, whatever the genre of film, anyone can do it. It's not about film, it's all about the sofa. And actually for us, that excitement of getting a partner like Sony and being alongside Everyman, and we did it on a shoestring budget, none of the actors were paid. We paid the horse, but none of the actors, was about actually saying, look, we want to do something different, and we want to be a brand that people really love and respect. And again, to wrap up, again, sometimes you lose. And I think, I go back to what I said right at the beginning, you know, it doesn't matter. You know what, plenty of times, I mean, I remember being at Nanny Tax when I changed from a phone-based system. We used to have an answer phone-based system. I moved to a call waiting system. And the day we did it, the Inland Revenue sent out 3,500 letters to our customers saying they were entitled to a refund, which was incorrect. So suddenly we went from having 300 calls a day to nearly 1,000 calls a day, because obviously they couldn't get through, they cut the call waiting, and the whole system crashed. And it was complete mayhem, and I got it completely wrong. But you know what, but we got through it, and we wrote, and we apologised, and we dealt with it, and you know what, sometimes you get it wrong, and it doesn't matter. You know what, you always make decisions, and sometimes, they say, sometimes in business it snows, sometimes the projector crashes, sometimes you get things totally wrong. And you know what, they're not the end of the world. And people obsess about getting things wrong, but you'd rather be in a position that you win or lose than actually not be in a position where you actually try to achieve something. And standing still is never an option. And I think, again, just to end, my favourite piece of film, again, I will go back through if anyone wants to know which the films are. It's Al Pacino, and it's a great thing that actually in business, and going back to the title, there's no such thing as a successful CEO. All right, there is no such thing as knowing what to do in a situation. The only thing you can do is sometimes, you know what, you try and do all the right things, and sometimes it is a game of inches. Sometimes, as with Everyman, you know what, 5 years before or 5 years later, you know what, it might not have worked out the way it's worked out. But actually we were at a time when I think the multiplex offering has become, in the same way as the independent offering has become, it's become worn. I think that people want to go back to their high street. I think you look at Trinity now here, and Trinity is a great example of the fact that people want to spend time in their city centre. They don't want to drive out of town. We are at a time of digital revolution. So we could do stuff in spaces we could never do stuff before, like Selfridges, for example. You used to have to build a big projector room. So again, it allowed our operating costs to decrease because we didn't have to have so many projection staff. It meant that we could have films under and over. So you know what? There's lots of things that happened that aligned, that allowed us to roll out what we believe is a great brand. But you know what? There's a lot of people out there who are great CEOs. You know what? Sometimes you're just a little bit too early or too late. And actually, I go back to something, you can work your arse off, but actually a bit of luck is always a fundamental thing. Thank you very much.